What's up, and welcome to episode 173 of Throwback Hoops. My name is Rob Clayton, and I'm joined by my homie Woody V.
Good to be back after a couple of weeks, Robbie. Sorry, I was a bit ill last week to all our audience, so sorry about the delayed week for the episode, but we're back
glad you're
now.
feeling better. It does feel like a while. It's only been 2 weeks, but it feels longer than that. But no, I'm glad you're back on board. And even though there's no games, the season's finished, there's still plenty to talk about. So today we're going to kind of recap the draft and also talk about this big start to free agency and some surprising trades that we've seen as well. So before we get into all that, and of course our jerseys, just a reminder to please make sure you like, rate, and subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to your audio podcasts. We're going to start with jerseys as we always do. Woods, are you getting a bit cheeky and wearing jerseys if you've worn?
I am, but there's a new story around this jersey, right? So I want to talk about it a little bit, right?
Excellent. And Woods is stand up rocking the number 34 San Antonio Spurs Jock Landale jersey.
And
nice
look,
nice looking jersey.
I was going to wear my Rob Edwards jersey, but then last second I thought, let's talk a little bit about Jock Landale, right? So he started off at San Antonio, had a good year in Phoenix, and then obviously he's been with Houston most recently and just landed in Memphis. Now, that's a good landing spot for him. You talk about JJJ, who's got some injuries to start the season off, and Zach Edey, I think he'll be out indefinitely to start the season. So he might
just traded Jay Huff last week. So basically he's the only centre on the roster at the moment, as far as I know.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a really good. He's projected to start, right? To start the season. And I think he fits in there, the kind of role that Steven Adams played previously at Memphis. I think he can fit into that similar type of role, and obviously spent a year with Steven recently at Houston. So I think that's the kind of role that he'll fulfill over there.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I was a bit worried when Houston started adding these big guys. We knew they brought back Adams. We know they've got an all-star in Şengün there. And when they did the Clint Capella signing, I was like, oh no. And I knew he was going to get waived. And we'll talk about it a bit later as well. Jack McVeigh also waived. So gone from having two of our Aussies on that Houston team to 0 now. But no, I think it's a great move. I mean, I heard people saying last week that Jay Huff was likely the starter. And then within the same day, I think he gets traded and they signed Jock Landale. So yeah, great landing spot. The Zach Edey one as well, you're not sure how long it'll take him to recover. Obviously, big guys probably take a little bit longer there. And Triple J, I think it was like a turf toe injury. I'm still not sure I totally know what turf toe is, just quietly. But it was an injury just playing pickup basketball after he'd signed that ginormous contract. So we're not sure of the time frame there. So interesting one. It is a nice jersey, that one too. I do like that one. Did you ever get another one? Did you ever get a Phoenix or a Rockets?
No, but I think we might have to get a new Landale jersey then, right?
Yeah.
I think a Memphis Landale looks pretty cool, right?
Yeah, and that's a different hat. I haven't seen that hat before.
Yes, it's a new Seattle Supersonics hat recently purchased, man. So yeah, it's got the old, throwback kind of style. So
yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah. Nice. Well, I'll get into mine. So all day I planned on wearing a Hawks jersey, and then I caved at the last minute and got one that I've been planning on wearing for a few weeks. So hence the bit of a random colour combo with a red shirt underneath. But I'll show you the one I'm rocking today. It's a weird sizing jersey, Woods. I don't know what's going on with this one. It's an Adidas XL one, but it's like extremely wide and not that long. So I don't know what's going on, but I'll show you what I'm rocking.
And for those who can't see, Robbie's wearing the Phoenix number 14 green jersey. So we're not talking about the recently acquired green, are we?
No, we're talking Gerald green.
Gerald green, jumping out of the gym.
Random one, right? Yeah. So, this is the Gerald green, purple Adidas Phoenix Suns jersey. I love this guy, Woods. I was a big fan of this guy's career. A little bit on green. He played 12 seasons in the NBA after getting drafted straight out of high school by the Celtics at pick 18 in the 05 draft. This is, of course, that interesting draft that was, Bogut, Marvin Williams, Deron Williams, CP3, etc. He played with plenty of teams, Woods. So played with the Celtics, Wolves, Rockets, Mavs, Nets, Pacers, Suns, and Heat before finishing off with a second stint in Houston. Actually played his final NBA minutes, I think 2019 from memory. I didn't quite fact check that. So the 6'7" swingman was well known for being a high flyer. And for me, he's one of the best in-game dunkers I think I've ever seen in my time watching NBA. Obviously, Vince Carter's up there, Dominique for me's up there, but this guy was next level, right? Always remember that alley-oop he did to the right of screen for New Jersey. You know the one I mean, right? He got it, kind of did that windmill in the air. Ridiculous.
I'll tell you, his ability to jump without the ball and then collect the ball and put it in the rim, right? Yeah. That's a unique skill set that he had, right? He could contort his body, catch the ball, and then just tuck it in, right?
So good, so good. So yeah, look, as I said, he won the NBA dunk comp in '07, was runner-up the next year. So not bad for someone that had a finger amputated while in the sixth grade after an accident, of course, while dunking. So he was missing a digit there. Fun fact, Woods, his brother Garland Green actually spent a season with the Canberra Gunners in the then Siebel League in 2014. So I wasn't quite aware of that. And also he's the second cousin of former NBA player Danny Green.
Danny Green,
which is pretty cool.
I knew that,
So yeah, Gerald Green is still only 39 years of age, so he's younger than us. After retiring from the NBA, he spent some time in the Big Three as well as on the Rockets coaching staff. He's also done some broadcasting with the Rockets as well. So yeah, someone I always really liked. Maybe a little bit underrated. It's strange that he bounced around with all those teams, never quite found that real home. I think it's one of those players, if you try and pick a team that you remember him with the most, it's probably a hard question, right? I don't even know what the answer to that question is. But yeah, what are your memories of Gerald Green?
I like the way he came back, a bit like the Dante Exum story, right? I remember him early on in his career with Boston. I think Minnesota it was early on, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe Dallas in that first stint. Then he went overseas for years, came back through the G League and earned a second chance at the NBA where he really thrived for another half a decade plus.
Worked on his shooting, didn't he? I think
Absolutely.
Yeah, because before he was just he was a guard, 6'7" swingman, but more a shooting guard there that basically couldn't shoot very well. But he was pretty handy by the end of his career there. And I don't know, all those teams, is there anyone that stands out for you? Maybe the Nets, just given he had that dunk for them. Maybe I'll go with
Boston,
that.
maybe because of the dunk contest, man. That put him on the map, right?
Yeah. Was that the dunk he blew out the cupcake? Was that him?
Yep, that was him.
Yeah,
yep.
So it was the cupcake. So people haven't seen that. Look at that. It was a pretty unique dunk. I don't think people realised at the time what he'd done. And when they showed the replay, like, hang on, did he just do what we think he did there? So, yeah, shout out to Gerald Green. Random jersey, right? As I said, it was another one that had the tag on it. Got it off. I'm like, wow, I've never worn it. It is a really weird sizing. I'm not sure what's going on with this one. It still fits all right. I think those extra burgers I've been having lately makes me fit into it good, but it's strange sizing on this one. But yeah,
you talk about him becoming a great shooter. In those Suns years, he shot the ball really well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, he definitely managed to work on that game, and I think you've got to do that maybe when your athleticism starts to go a little bit, but still a pretty solid NBA career, right?
Definitely.
12 seasons. He bounced around a bit, but coming straight out of high school, 12 seasons. Shout out to Gerald Green there. So, card of the week, hot off the press Woods, this one. So if you saw in our group chat, I sent this one through today. So had a bit of delivery of PSA auto cards today. So I love my Hawks PSA rookie cards, and this is a ripper. This one. So this is an Upper Deck 2002 SP Authentic autograph rookie card of Boris Diaw. So I'll give you a look at that one. So it's numbered 343 of 1250, but really nice card. You can see it's rated a 10 as well, so PSA 10 would. So PSA 10 rookie that's also got an autograph. That's a pretty nice card, that one there. So doesn't really say much on the back, but I don't think I've showed a lot of Upper Deck cards, have I? So they were obviously out of the game, I think, from the early noughties there. But yeah, this is a great one there. So I think we have spoken about Boris Diaw on the show. I don't think either of us have a Boris Diaw Hawks jersey.
I've got a Suns jersey.
You've got a Suns there. It's got a Hawks one. Yeah. So yeah, liking this one here, the number 32 for the Hawks there. So was that John Concack's number? Oh, could have been.
You're the numbers guy, but I tell you what, finding a Boris Diaw Hawks jersey would be near impossible.
100%, it would be a tough one to find, but really nice looking card, right? So it's a rookie authentics. As I said, it's numbered, it's autographed, and it's a 10. So ticks all the boxes there. So had to get a Boris Diaw, one in my collection. Also had a John Jenkins card today. What are your memories of John Jenkins?
Great teammate.
Teammate of someone we were talking to on the weekend, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt College, right? So he was a teammate of AJ Ogilvy. Yeah.
I think we would have had Dollar Bill there as well.
Yeah, Dollar Bill, John Jenkins, the great AJ Ogilvy. So shout out to AJ, who we both got to catch up with at the NBL one on the weekend, which was good. So
really good to see AJ, man. Yeah.
No, 100%. All right. So, well, as I mentioned at the start, Woods, a lot to talk about. We'll start off with the draft. Look, it's probably a week and a half, but it feels like it's about a month ago, which is a bit strange there. So, look, we're not going to go back and recap all the picks. Before you put up a little slide that you prepared earlier, Woods, we're just going to quickly talk about the Aussies, right? So, as expected, all 4 Aussies got drafted, which was fun. I think they all went a little bit later than what we expected there. And I know Stu and Nath, especially Stu, mentioned it on the Sports Blog. Shout out to the boys there about the draft coverage for that second round. Oh my God, it was awful. So literally there was 5 minutes of draft and then there'd be 5 minutes of ads with the same 3 ads rotated. So 3 of those 4 Aussies guys that got drafted, we didn't even see the announcement, right? It happened in the ads. I came back, in the ad break, this guy got drafted by whoever. So that was a little bit disappointing. I don't like the 2-day format, if I'm being honest. Just do it in one day. Make it a bit like a 4-hour event sort of thing. I don't like the going back and not being on on the big stage, and then it's a bit crap. But anyway, the way the picks went was, so 3 of those 4 Aussies in the second round were traded, which was pretty hard to sort of keep up with. That's another bugbear of mine. They still go out and wear that hat of the team that we know is trading. So I reckon in that situation, give them an NBA hat, right? So just a nice NBA hat with an NBA logo and no team logo. Maybe that's the way around it, because you're forever seeing those photos of you always see Trae Young and Luka wearing the other team's hats and stuff. Just give them the hat they're traded to. So anyway, Rocco went first. He was pick 45 to the Wolves via the Bulls. So he was the first one of them to go. 4 picks later, we had Tyrese Proctor go to the Cavs. That was the only one that actually drafted him that stayed there. Alex Tui went to the Warriors via the Suns at pick 55. Then shout out to Lockie Ulbrich, who was the last one there. No, sorry, it was 52 Tui and 55 Ulbrich. So Ulbrich was the Bulls via the Lakers. So let's talk a little bit about those 4. Pretty pleased that all 4 got drafted. Shout out to Ethan Almanza as well, the next star who ended up getting a free agency, I think a 2-way deal with Philadelphia there. But let's start off with the first pick there, right? So pick 45, Rocco Zikarsky to the Wolves. We know they've got a pretty handy international big man on that team as well. But yeah, what were your thoughts on Rocco ending up in Minnesota?
Firstly, yeah, you mentioned the big man Rudy Gobert and Naz Reid there that he can learn from. Also, he has Joe Ingles there, who's just re-signed this week, right? So good for Rocco to have someone familiar there to join in the Minnesota. With the Minnesota franchise. I do expect him to spend a lot of time with the G League affiliate, back and forth. In fact, all 4 of these picks I probably would say would be heading down that route.
They did lose Luka Garza, who was that other ginormous guy they had on the bench last year. So at least it's good he's not sort of too far in the down the food chain behind him. So I didn't think it was a bad pick there. I think there's a lot of upside on a pick like this. He was the biggest guy in the draft. They're saying he's the 3rd tallest in the NBA now, behind Wemby and Zach Edey, I believe. So 3rd biggest guy in the NBA, which is a pretty awesome effort there. So shout out to Rocco. Great to see him getting after another former COE player from the mighty NBL 1 East. So yeah, 4 picks later, we had Tyrese Proctor going to the Cavs. So that was an interesting one. Apparently he was someone they were really high on, and they were stoked to get him at that pick there. And they probably watched him a lot at Duke last year. Some Aussies that maybe don't follow the college game might not be as familiar with Tyrese Proctor as they are with the other 3. But what were your thoughts on him ending up in Cleveland?
Yeah, look, he had an up and down college career. Started to show something last year, but he was much higher on draft boards a number of years ago, right? So he did fall. But in terms of his game, that can translate to the NBA level right away. There's more spacing on an NBA floor. I think he's going to be able to out of all those 4 picks, Tyrese Proctor's game is going to be able to translate to the NBA level probably sooner than some others. Obviously, they've got a lot of depth at guard. I noticed they did trade away Isaac Okoro during the week, but they got Lonzo Ball in exchange. So
you've got to refer to him as Isaac No Scorer, of course. But yeah,
Isaac No
So
Scorer.
so that's a veteran presence. Maybe that's a good thing. Getting the veteran, maybe not because it's behind another potential point guard. We know Ball misses a lot of time, but he's also got another Aussie, right? Because they gave another 2-way contract to Luke Travis.
Absolutely.
So that's great. So we've gone from losing 2 at Houston, now we've got 2 at Cleveland. So that was pretty cool.
Actually, while you talk about that, it's Luke Travis there with Proctor, right? And then in Chicago, potentially, Giddey should sign pretty soon, so he'll be there with Lockie Ulbrich. And then you've got Taron Armstrong, who's going to be there with Alex Tui in Golden State. So literally all 4 of these guys have coming into situations with familiar faces there.
Hey, I'm going to tell you something later that there might be a little duo happening in Atlanta if we have our fingers crossed. I'm hoping for that one. So I thought that was pretty good. I'm glad Cleveland was sort of high and got their man there. So there were all these picks that came within 3 or 4 of each other. So 3 picks later, Alex Tui to the Warriors via the Suns. And as I said, it was a bit hard to keep up with all these second round trades. There was unbelievable how many trades there were. But he was someone they were really high on. By all accounts, he had a pretty poor workout with Golden State. So I think he actually apologized. He's like, I had a really bad workout. I wasn't hitting my shots. But they obviously saw something in him. We know Steve Kerr loves Aussies, right? But they obviously saw something in him just watching all that game tape through the NBL and everything that they wanted to draft him there. And I thought that was a pretty cool spot for him to end up because we know it's a different team, right? A lot of veterans, not a lot of young guys on that team. But yeah, what was your take on that?
Look, Steve Kerr can put in a call to his really good friends, Luke Longley and Andrew Bogut, and they're going to give him...
And you bet you'd bottom dollar he did that.
Bet you he did. 100% he did, right? And so they would have drafted that workout. Okay, sure, you can have a bad workout, but Golden State's a team that likes to, have high character individuals join that franchise. We've seen that over the years, right? And all the intangibles Alex Tui brings. He's a little bit maturer than some of the other guys in this draft. He's played in the pros for a couple of years. He's just a baller, man. So I think I hope he gets an opportunity. I really do, but I think he'll also he's on a two-way. He'll be on a two-way, won't he?
It
Or
is a two-way,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And he's another one that dropped a bit, right? Because there was a lot of talk, maybe even 4 to 6 weeks ago. They thought he'd be a late first rounder. So he's gone from being that late first rounder to being picked 52. You wonder whether maybe he doesn't, project as well in those workouts they have. But, if he's playing that role player there, I like him. I think he's sneaky athletic. He can shoot. I think his defense will continue to evolve as he gets a bit of work into him. And I think he's someone that's very coachable and that will improve. So I think that's a good one.
And Taron Armstrong and him, they're at similar times in their career, right?
Yeah.
Where you think of Joe Ingles, who's nearly 40, and Rocco Zikarsky is a teenager.
Yeah.
These two guys will push themselves in the training gym, when they're with the G League affiliate and whatnot, right? They'll have each other and they'll really demand the best of one another. So that's a really good fit for both of them to be together.
Absolutely. And then the last one, pick 55. So I think it was only 4 picks left. It was only 59 picks in the draft instead of the 60 this year. So NBL championship player Lachlan Albrick, traded by the Lakers to the Bulls. So he ends up on the Bulls, as you mentioned, with Josh Giddey there. He's already signed the contract. He's got his jersey number. He's heaps of social media stuff. And apparently they're really happy to get him as well. So I thought that was a good move there. He's someone that probably better get used to the G League a little bit this year. But what were your final take on the last Aussie getting
Reminds me of Cam Besto signing with the Bulls, right? A very similar type of game they've got, right? Coming in. I just hope his career in the NBA is a more fulfilled one than Cam Besto's, right? Yeah.
How do you sort of see his game? Because he's a big guy, and look, he's a good defender without being a great defender, and probably not the most athletic of some of these big guys you see. But I think he's got a good low post game, and he's an improving shooter too. How do you think his game will translate?
That remains to be seen. He doesn't stretch the floor much.
No.
He's not a great rim protector,
Yeah.
but he does a lot of things okay, right? He can run the floor. He
Yeah.
can box out. He can get rebounds. So it remains to be seen. I think he does need to develop some of those things you mentioned to have a fulfilled and long career in the league, though. Yeah.
I feel like Chicago's got a lot of international players in that team, so maybe he'll fit in well there. So, I thought we'd start with that bit. So, look, massive congratulations to all 4 of those guys. I must admit, as we sort of started to get in the, mid to late 40s, I was like, where are our Aussies? No one's getting drafted, but then they all came in that flurry. Shame we didn't see any announcements due to the shocking coverage by ESPN. But anyway, so that was basically the Aussies. Maybe put up that lovely slide, Woods. We'll just talk a couple of picks and surprises from the draft. We've got the round 1 and 2 slide that we can see there. Look, I guess for me, and look, we did our preview a couple of weeks ago. It was good to see the players we sort of spent that time researching, drafted. I didn't think there was a lot of changes, maybe in that first 5 picks or so. The Ace Bailey one was pretty topical, wasn't it, there? Because he was sort of telling teams he didn't want to get drafted.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on Ace Bailey? He has reported to Utah. I know some people were worried there. I think he wasn't quite sure how the draft worked. He thought he could just nominate 2 teams and one of those would get him, but not how it works. But I thought Utah, maybe let's start with Utah. So they got Ace Bailey, and they also got Walter Clayton Jr. I was stoked to see him. We'll be buying a Utah jersey. I thought they did pretty well on draft day there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Austin Ainge is there now, right? Danny's son taking over things at Utah, and he's picking the best talent available at that pick, right? And I mean, and Ace Bailey is that guy, right? So I think he did the right thing because this guy is the talent that he has is and the potential that he has to become a multiple-time All-Star. You can't pass on that, right? So I think now that he's turned up and he's there, there's a few guards there, as well, right? But yeah, I mean. Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad that he's turned up, and hopefully has a good attitude about where he's landed. Right.
That's it. Let's go rapid fire on a few. So you were pretty high up on VJ Edgecombe. Love to see Buddy Hield there right on draft day. That was awesome. My daughter Emily's that's her favourite player, so she was loving that. The Bahamas there and everything. But were you pleased that he ended up in that spot in Philly?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, he's already shown it in these few summer league games, right? The kind of potential and upside he has. Sorry, I meant to say there's already some forwards in Utah. Where Ace Bailey's at the 3 spot there, right, in the depth chart, right? So I think that he drafted Ace Bailey on talent. So just going back to that comment there,
Yeah. So happy with VJ. What about Murray Boyles there? So he was the Toronto player that got drafted. Didn't look too happy about it, but then social media resurfaced of him actually rocking a Toronto jersey as a kid. So he kind of had the last laugh there. That was one of those ones where he just looked surprised. He muttered a few words. If you're a good lip reader, you could have worked out. But
Yeah.
that one was interesting. What was your take on that?
I mean, all these guys need to have a little bit more class, right? Because in the end,
Mm.
you're getting paid to play professionally, right? You know,
Yeah,
you're getting
true.
drafted into the NBA, one of 60 guys to do it every year, right?
Yeah,
And like when you get offered a job paying millions of dollars, right? You
yeah.
know, straight away, is it the right attitude to have? Straight away, executives are looking at your reactions, what you're doing,
100%.
you
Yeah.
know, and that's gonna stay with him. So,
And that made
you
a
know,
lot of headlines. Yeah, so hopefully you can go and turn that part around.
the fact that you're talking about it right now says it all, right?
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. So you see a lot of these players as well. You see that logo next to them. So like you see Derek Queen for Atlanta. No, traded away like a lot of these. Big surprise was pick 16 Woods. Yang Hansen, so the big Chinese center there. He was projected to be probably in the 40 to 50s, right? He was actually in Brooklyn at the stadium, came down into the green room. That's one of the biggest shock
I
draft
know.
picks, I reckon. So I don't know. And we talked about not having many centers for Memphis. That is one for him there. Not quite sure about that one, right? That was one. Look,
AJ Johnson
yeah,
vibes.
yeah, exactly. The vibes of that last year, but this is even higher. This is pick 16. So that was a bit of a shock, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'll tell you what did actually shock me a little bit, Rob. You know, you did
Mm,
your preview a couple of weeks ago, right?
yeah,
And you know, Cameron Malowach, right? And we
mm,
talked about the Suns last year and their
yeah,
dumpster fire at center with Iguodaro and Mason Plumlee and whatever, right? In
mm,
the week, they've picked up Mark Williams, right?
yeah,
And they've also got Malowach,
yeah.
who came via that Kevin Durant trade, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, that's how they got him there and slid to pick 10. So that was a
10,
little bit higher
right?
than what people were thinking there. Yeah, I know the
And
guy that Brooklyn got at pick 8, the Israeli guy. I think people were shocked that he went as high as he did.
and
So yeah, not bad for Phoenix, right?
Yeah, and I wasn't as high on Cameron Malowach last week because I hadn't done
Mm,
as much groundwork and research. But after we spoke about him, I went and looked up scouting reports, video footage. This guy
yeah,
could be one of the best players in this draft,
yeah,
man.
and he's still
So
learning the game as
I
well. So
think that
no,
upside is great, and I think that's a really good pickup for Phoenix there. You know, who are trying to rebuild at the moment. So.
absolutely. Couple of quick ones. Dylan Harper's mum. Any comments? That was getting a lot of attention.
I think it was Dyson Daniels' mom who was getting all the attention a few
Yes,
years
true,
ago, right?
true.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
I know
yeah.
a few people like. I think I read this one post that said, "Oh, Dylan Harper's girlfriend's really pretty," and then everyone's like, "Ah, it's actually his mum. That's Ron Harper's wife." And I
Yeah.
feel like so many people don't know who Ron Harper is. I was sort of mentioned to
How
a
is
few
that?
people I like, and I know it's just a name that, like, if you started following in the noughties, you don't know who he is. Do your research, guys. Respect the game, learn about the Ohio Flyer and Ron Harper, and what a great career that guy had. And now he's got two sons in the NBA, including the second pick.
Yeah, good for him.
Brooklyn, 5 first-round picks. Any idea what they were doing there? Are they just trying to have a short, salary cap going into something? That was a bit of a surprise for
Yeah, I
them.
mean, God knows what Brooklyn's been doing over the last few years, right? Cam
Mm,
Johnson's gone now. I think they got Michael Porter Jr. now during the week, right?
yeah, that's right. Yeah, we'll talk a
Yeah,
bit about that one. That was a
yeah,
surprise.
yeah.
And maybe to finish off with some first-round stuff. Everyone's singing the praises of the Hawks, right? So they traded down, ended up getting a trade with the Pelicans there that they're going to get a pretty high draft pick next season. So some people are calling it highway robbery. And then they got Asa Powell there. So at
Yeah.
pick 22 there. So yeah, so Asa Powell. It's got Drake Powell on that one. That's a bit interesting. But yeah, Asa Powell. So he went to Georgia. He's an Atlanta boy. Someone that they followed the whole year and scouted him there. And they were, by all accounts, they were expecting him to go maybe around that pick 14, 15 range there. So to trade down, get him at pick 22, and then also get an unprotected pick from the Pelicans next year was really good draft day, I think, from the Hawks. But yeah, what's your take on that one?
Yeah, good. I mean, and we'll talk about some of the other good things that the Hawks have done during the
Mm,
week, right?
yeah,
To build their roster for next year. I don't know how much Powell's going to play next year,
yeah.
right off
He's
the
still a
bat.
little bit raw from what I'm
Yeah.
sort of seeing offensively. But look, they've made a couple of moves. I think there's still some guys that you might see move on from that. So he might be someone that gets a little bit used to the G League early. But he could join a team that I hate this pressure that's on the Hawks. And people are talking these guys up as a Eastern Conference favourite, which I'm not. I don't really like. I like when the Hawks are under the radar a bit. But yeah, we can't be going to this season expecting another play-in and not even making the playoffs. This has got to be the year that the Hawks capitalise. Well, maybe that's a bit of a segue there for talking about some trades, right? So I know when we did that trade a couple of weeks ago, literally 2 hours after we recorded, there was a couple of trades. So, and one of those involved our team, right? So the trade that involved our team was Kristaps Porzingis heading to Atlanta. It was a three-way trade. So the Hawks only had to give up Shoot That Thing, Georges Niang, and Terrence Mann. So we basically got Porzingis from the Celtics there. Terrence Mann ended up in Brooklyn. shoot that thing George is kneeing in Boston. But obviously, Kristaps Porzingis is the big name of this trade, right? I like this one. I've always been a Porzingis fan. I did consider his jersey today, but didn't quite get it out of the cupboard. But I think health's dependent on this one. But this could be a good trade for the Hawks.
Absolutely, and you said it. Health is the big thing. He had that mystery illness last year, and then coming back from that, he was never the same. And all reports were like, Boston couldn't get an answer to why he wasn't recovering in time. With an off season, let's just hope he's in good
Apparently
health.
he's better. I'm hearing he's 100%. So obviously time sort of healed that. And look, Boston were out a bit earlier than what they normally would be in the playoffs and that there. And that's a good couple of months. Well, is it a couple of months since they played, or it feels like that way anyway? But I think that's huge. I'm not quite sure what that starting five will be for the Hawks. It's going to have to be a tough call with someone going to the bench. So one of those bench guys that will either be Double O, Porzingis, or
Can't be Jalen Johnson. Yeah, it'll be Reece
no way. The way I'd probably do it, I'd probably move Reece to six-man, and I'd start with Trey, Dyson Daniels. I'd put JJ at the three, Jalen Johnson. Hopefully his shooting can improve a little bit, and then I'd play Kristaps and Onyeka Okongwu together. Both those guys can defend. They can both stretch the floor. That starting five would be pretty impressive. And then you've got some decent guys coming off the bench. We'll talk about some of those guys coming up soon because we have strengthened the
I'd probably do something slightly different to you, but
sure,
but not,
so you'd have Reece and not Porzingis.
No, I'd probably maybe even Nickeil Alexander-Walker, man. Now he's there, right?
Yeah, I don't think they're bringing him in to be a starter. You never know; they might be, and they've got some defensive guys on this team to support. Trey,
and have both Reece and Porzingis on the bench. Start Okongwu and JJ. Then you've got the 6th and 7th man coming off the bench that are really strong, right?
The other trade we saw, so poor old CJ McCollum was traded from New Orleans along with Kerry Olynyk to Washington for Jordan Poole, Saddiq Bey. So I feel a bit sorry for CJ. He's kind of going from one disappointing team to a very disappointing team, but he was probably the headline name in that trade. But people are saying Jordan Poole may end up being good for the Pelicans. I don't know how they work it out, but what did you think of that trade?
I think in terms of Washington, what they're trying to do is bring some experienced vets in. They've got Chris Middleton, they've got Marcus Smart there, right? And this is just adding to that veteran crew, right? So I think that's what they've needed in the past because that team needs some direction. So I'm okay with it, right?
Yeah.
And I think Washington can be a little bit more competitive with those three guys around them with some young dudes and have some leadership there. So I'm okay with it. I'm not sure how okay CJ is with it, though.
It's a bit like that. I'm not sure he'll be loving that one. I think he's probably hoping for a buyout or something. Shout out to Saddiq Bey in that trade. Obviously, he hasn't played since leaving the Hawks. He was traded to Washington. He missed the whole of last season with injury. So he's a guy on a pretty decent contract at the moment. I liked what he gave our Hawks there. So I'd like to see him bounce back. As far as I know, he is healthy going into the preseason there. So that could be a bit of a surprising one, maybe someone that people have forgotten about. Talking of trades, we spoke about the Lonzo Ball for Isaac Noscoro one, so we don't need to talk more about that. You did mention Mark Williams obviously being traded to Phoenix there. Hopefully his health's okay. We did see he was in that rescinded trade with the Lakers last season, so all the best to him in Phoenix. Another reasonable one there. So Utah trading Colin Sexton to Charlotte for Yusuf Nurkic. Thought that was an interesting one, right? So Charlotte seemed to be trying to get a few bigs there to replace some of these guys they've lost, but Colin Sexton, is he someone that we could see have a bit of a good year for the Hornets?
Play alongside Lonzo Ball, that remains to be seen. He's going to have to play a lot of the two. Lonzo wants the ball in his hands. LaMelo wants the ball in his hands a lot, right? My apologies. But I don't know what the Hornets are even doing, man. So that leaves them. Nurkic is gone, right?
Yeah.
Mark Williams is gone. So
and
that basically
Nick
leaves
Richards left last year as
Nick
well.
Richards is gone. Leaves Musa Diabate is the only big man left starting at center.
That's not great, is it? Well, probably a big trade here was Denver trading their championship starting player in Michael Porter Jr. to the Brooklyn Nets for Cam Johnson. So it's funny, when I first heard this trade, it was told to me that it was Cam Thomas. I'm like, Cam Thomas, I don't know about that. But Cam Johnson's good,
He's awesome.
right?
He's awesome.
Basically a similar player to Michael Porter Jr. on about 1/10 of the money there. So I thought they did pretty well there. So Denver to be getting him. Michael Porter Jr., we know he can score. He's a below average rebounder, below average defender. He's got injury history and he's on a lot of money. So I don't know, he might put up some big numbers at Brooklyn, but I think maybe Denver won that.
Oh, absolutely. And Cam Johnson's attitude is awesome. He's a great teammate. People love playing with him.
They do.
That's the one thing you point out. He's a far more productive rebounder. Than Michael Porter Jr., right?
Yeah.
And that's what Denver really needed from Michael Porter to get on the glass a little bit more, right? So I think they're going to get that from Cam Johnson. He's also a slightly more willing defender, I think, as well, right?
Yeah.
So,
It's interesting. I was getting in that routine each morning. I'd wake up, get my phone and do a refresh on this site that I use for all the transactions. every day there was so many. It started to slow down a bit now. Obviously, still is quite a few free agents, and I think a lot of those players became official today because it was the 6th of July in America. So a lot of those ones became official. Maybe just go through a few quick hit ones here. So look, we spoke about Jock Landale. Congrats to him for ending up in Grizzlies, where he'll probably start. Houston trading on Cam Whitmore to Washington for 2 second rounders. It never quite worked out there. Talking of Houston, they've had to get rid of a lot of decent players, I reckon there, but. Cam Whitmore, maybe someone that could do something on that Wizards team.
Someone could learn from the likes of Chris Middleton, CJ McCollum, and Marcus Smart, right? So that's what I said earlier. Surrounding some of these young guys with those vets is definitely going to be a good learning experience for them. So it's not the worst landing spot for them, for him. Yeah.
And look, I'm not going to go too much in players that have re-signed with their teams there. It's more the players that have changed teams. So Hornets signing Spencer Dinwiddie to a 1-year contract. Maybe a bit of backup for when LaMelo Ball gets injured and does all those
Colin Sexton
right?
as well,
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, that seems a strange team. You've got Brandon Miller coming back from injury. You've got
Nick Richards. What's his name? Nick Smith Jr.
Nick
right?
Smith Jr. Yeah, they've got a lot of players, and of course Green as well, our boy. So interesting one there. Lakers getting DeAndre Ayton on a 2-year contract.
Yeah,
we knew that was going to happen when Portland bought him out. That was probably pretty expected there. Look, they've got the number 1 and the number 5 pick on that team now. They should try and get Marvin Bagley and try and get all those guys from that draft pick on there. Look, there's probably a reason why he got run out of town in Phoenix and Portland. Right, a lot of people, like it is with Lakers, he'll be an all-star this year. You know what these Lakers sort of fans and reporters are like. Do you think this could be the time that sort of things start to click for him there?
I thought he was okay in Portland last year. All right, I think they're moving in a different direction. They probably want to play Robert Williams and who's the big white guy?
Kling Kong. Yeah.
What is his name?
Donovan Clingan.
Donovan Clingan, exactly. Yeah. So surplus of need. Diaw is there, so they could part ways with one of those bigs.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something. If you're the Lakers, who would you prefer to be the big man in the middle? Mark Williams, who's now signed with Phoenix, or DeAndre Ayton?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think Williams probably offers a little bit more defensively, and maybe someone that's maybe got a better work ethic as well than Ayton. I'm just not sure with DeAndre Ayton playing with some of these veterans on this Lakers team whether they're going to put up with some of. He has been called lazy. That's a word that I've often heard associated with him there. I'm not sure. He's one of these guys that loves the game. He's obviously got a lot of size and he's got a lot of skill. Let's face it there. But yeah, I'd say probably you'd look at Mark Williams. But look, I think this is almost the last chance to learn for someone like DeAndre Ayton, right? He's going to be known as a bit of a bust if he continues to move from team to team like this. But yeah, you thinking the same there? Or?
I think playing alongside Luka and LeBron is definitely going to heighten his game, right? And having those guys around him that'll demand the best of him. And the lights are always shining in LA, right?
Yeah. So there's other stuff that's shining and glowing brightly, and I've heard he likes some of those things that might be legal in LA as well. So that might not be a good sign for him there. But hey, before we go on to the next ones, I think I was calling Asa Newell Asa Powell before. So my apologies. I've got to get my Hawks draft pick right. So Asa Newell, right?
Yep, the 23rd pick in the draft. Yep. Easy to get that wrong because Asa Powell, Asafa Powell, the great Jamaican sprinter. You probably just said Powell
Thanks for bailing me out on that one. Nice, appreciate it. So,
no worries, man.
Well, look, still a few more interesting ones we'll talk about, Woods. So obviously the Bucks, that was probably the big one from last week there. So signed Miles Turner to a 4-year, $107 million contract. So pretty big one there. I was surprised about this. Indiana maybe feel like they're sort of, bit of a gap year next year for them. What were your thoughts on that for both teams?
Really surprised. Obviously, I was just talking about, 10 years he spent with the Indiana Pacers, went all the way to the finals.
Yeah.
Very surprising. I noticed that they'd waived Damian Lillard as well.
Oof,
so
that's huge. That's
massive.
Yeah. So what do you think will happen for Lillard, right? So obviously, for those that don't know, he's out for the season with an Achilles. Do you think he'll just basically not be an NBA player for this year and then he'll be signed as a free agent? I know there's some veteran teams that have talked about maybe trying to get him now and placing him on their IR, but how do you see this? Is a pretty unique circumstance, right?
Very. I mean, the only time I can think of, I think Detroit had a whole heap of money left on Josh Smith's contract and just waived him.
It's now the biggest one after Josh Smith, and that still gives me nightmares.
That's the only other thing I can remember, even remember.
But he wasn't obviously an all-star like Dame Lillard was last year and had that career that Dame Lillard's got. So yeah, look, it's a shame, and I'm a big Dame fan there. I rock his Lillards every week, basketball. I hope he gets back out there, and we know the stats aren't great with players coming back, especially at his age, especially someone that relies on cutting and quickness and those sort of things there. But I hope he can come back and maybe he latches on to a team that might contend for next season there. So yeah, that was certainly a big one there.
Yep.
Other ones of note, so What do we got there? Is Cavs signing Larry Nance Jr. to a one-year contract from the Hawks? Is that one of note or not really? Well, I
I
like
mean,
Nance, so maybe that's one.
it's nice, and like he's familiar
Yeah,
with the region, and
he is.
the
He's played with
Nance
the Cavs before. Yeah,
as his father has as well.
yeah,
So you know,
absolutely.
yeah.
So Dennis Schroeder signing for his 800th NBA team, so he's going to be with the Kings next year. 3 years,
Man,
45 million. Probably not bad. 15 million for someone
yeah.
that can play like he does, right?
Jeez, I'm not looking forward to watching Sacramento basketball this season.
Sacramento. Someone left a tweet
God,
last week. They
oh my
said
God,
Sacramento's like your team if your internet stuffed up and you've got an auto draft fantasy team
oh
and
my
you've just got these
God.
guys that were essentially good 5 years
Yeah,
ago, sort of thing. Yeah, they're going to be pretty
yeah.
average to watch there. The Knicks signed the Dancing Bear, Gershon Yabusele, to a 2-year, $12 million deal. I thought that's a great deal to get him. He was
Great
pretty
deal.
handy with Philly.
And he proved last year as well, you know.
Yeah. In fact, New York as well, Woods, they've sort of added their bench a little bit, right? So they're getting Jordan
Jordan
Clarkson from
Clarkson.
Utah. They've
Yeah.
got the Dancing Bear Yabusele there. So not bad sort of business by them so far.
And are you telling me they might actually have a coach that'll play some of those guys on the bench this
Well,
year?
yeah, shout out to Mike Brown. That's probably that head coach role. Look, we know he's had some success. Still a strange one, right? Will he be better than Tibbs? He's probably a defensive coach as well, Mike Brown. But he's had some teams that have been able to score as well. So we'll see how that goes.
Yep.
This one I thought was interesting. So Sacramento trading Jonas Valanciunas to Denver for Dario Saric. Now we've mentioned a few times we're always surprised that Saric didn't play for the Nuggets. Well, Valanciunas might not be playing for the Nuggets as well, from what I'm hearing. So he apparently might be going to, I think it's Olympiacos in the EuroLeague there. So strange, right? He would have been a pretty good backup, I would have thought, to the Joker.
Yeah, I mean, trying something different. He's had a very, very storied NBA career, you know. So I think good luck to him, right?
Yeah, true. Another couple of minor ones just to wrap this up. So Denver signing Tim Hardaway Jr. to a one-year contract. Thought he had some decent playoff games to Detroit last year, so not bad. I think they've strengthened their team. That's assuming they can get Valanciunas to stay, but they may have strengthened that team. And
Definitely.
Bruce Brown back as well.
Both those guys, definitely great guys. Coming off the bench, really good complementary pieces around the Joker. So I
Yeah.
like that, yeah.
What did you think about the big contract that Detroit did in that sign and trade for Duncan Robinson? So 3 years, 48 million. I thought that was pretty big there. I think there's guys that can do similar jobs. All right, I'm going to ask you straight up, and I'm putting my Hawks Homer hat off. I'll take it off. Is Duncan Robinson better than Garrison Matthews? Is he better than him?
Yes,
Garrison, is he?
marginally.
Oof. I think Garrison Matthews is a pretty sneaky defender and a lot more athletic than Duncan Robinson there. I thought that was a massive overpay there. Apparently they had money to spend on Malik Beasley. We won't be watching that guy ever play NBA again from what I'm hearing after the charges are up against him for match fixing or game fixing, whatever they call it, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, I thought that was big money for Detroit to spend on him. I guess they lost a
Having
couple of guys.
Hardaway and Beasley, you mentioned these guys.
They needed a
So
shooter.
they're two marksmen that they had.
Yeah.
Losing both of them, right?
Yeah.
This makes sense.
Yeah, maybe the money didn't make sense. Yeah, the player, fair enough.
The player
fair
made
enough.
sense. The money,
Yeah.
yes, it's a bit questionable. But sometimes you overpay when you really want something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A couple of other quick ones. Brook Lopez to the Clippers, 2 years, 18 million. That's not bad money. I know he's a veteran, didn't have the greatest season, but pretty decent backup for our boy Zubac, right?
Yeah, and I mean, like, the Clippers are really going into this. Let's bring in the Batums of the world, Let's bring in Patty Mills, and they're really like Brook Lopez at the fag end of his career, right?
Yeah, you don't mind that though for a
I
backup.
don't mind it
right?
at all. I don't
Yeah.
mind it at all.
Yeah. What do we got there? We mentioned Luka Garza to Boston. That's probably not what we
Whatever.
didn't spend too much time on that one. And maybe the Hawks one. We didn't speak about this really. So Nikhil Alexander-Walker, 4 years, $62 million contract. So apparently this was someone that Trey basically told him, you've got to go out and get this guy. A lot of teams were interested in his services. He's known as a 3-and-D player. Every time we see the Hawks play, they'll mention on every coverage he's the cousin of SGA there. You'll hear that a million times next year. But I thought that was pretty good there. He's a sneaky good player and someone that can play similar to Dyson Daniels and could be that 3-and-D player. That was a good
Definitely.
signing, right?
Very, underrated. We don't speak
Yeah.
about him enough, right? But he just gets the job done, and he's
Yeah.
a quality NBA rotation guy.
I've
so
got a mate,
yeah.
shout out to Pat, who I work with, is a big Minnesota fan. He reached out to me. He's like, man, you guys did so well. He really wanted the Hawks to hold, to the Wolves to hold on to him. So really pleased and excited for
Agreed.
the Hawks to get him. They also picked up Luke Kennard. So that was a 1 year,
Hell,
$11
I was
million
gonna say, man,
contract.
that's
Yeah,
your
Don't
guy,
mind Luke
man.
Kennard.
We haven't talked about this yet. This is a guy who you've been who you have an affinity to, right?
Absolutely
so to see him
do.
coming
I love
to play the
lefty
Hawks,
shooters for starters.
yeah.
This guy's like a career 40% shooter. He's a big unit. He can pass okay. Not the greatest defender, but he's not on the team for defense, right? We've got a lot of other guys, about 7 other guys that can play D there. So I thought that was good. So essentially, and they've lost all those guys that they picked up in that mid-season trade last year, which is remarkable. So Niang, Terrence Mann, Karis LeVert-Simon, Detroit. That's another one for there. So they've lost all those 3, but they've replaced them with Porzingis, Nikhil Alexander-Walker, and Luke Kennard. So you've got to say, that's major upgrade.
Love
there,
it.
right?
Yep.
Major upgrade. What else have we got there? That was sort of seemed to be the main ones. Is there any other ones? Oh, maybe Ty Jerome getting a 3-year, $28 million contract with the Grizzlies. He got paid after one pretty good year for the Cavs. He was pretty ordinary in the playoffs in that sweep. Or was it a sweep or was it a gentleman's sweep in that first round? Cleveland, Indiana. He was pretty poor. He had one good game, then he was non-existent for 3 others.
I don't remember now.
But yeah, Grizzlies, maybe not a bad deal again. I mean, you look at that on the surface, 3 years, $28 million sounds like a lot, but in today's day and age, money-wise, it's probably
I like that.
It's probably not crazy. And maybe we'll finish off with someone that you've always liked there, Woods. D'Angelo Russell, you like him a lot more than me.
Man.
He signed a 2-year, $13 million contract for Dallas, who's without Kyrie Irving for a fair bit of next year. So probably not a bad signing, right?
No, and you'll see Dante Exum and him having a lot of work to do in the first half of the season, and then for the majority of the season. Kyrie Irving, if he's going to come back, it'll be the very end of the season potentially, right? So,
hey, I lied. There is a few more moves I want to ask you about quickly, right? So,
go on.
Minnesota re-signed Joe Ingles. You happy with that? He looked like he was gone for all counts.
Look, honestly, it's about character. They want high character individuals in the locker room, and from all reports, the reason he's coming here is to be that locker room guy. You'd rather have a guy, the 15th, 14th guy on your bench, who's not going to complain about playing time. He's going to be the guy who's going to help the young kids off the floor, rather than the guy who's going to be, whinging about not playing, etc. Right? So
Kevon Looney to the Pelicans, finally leaving.
Man, it's just going to be really weird to see my guy, who I like a lot, right? New Orleans, man, it's a weird team, man.
Yeah.
Like seriously, who's even going to take the floor for them this year?
It's
Like,
be a strange
don't even
team,
know,
isn't it?
man. Like,
And let's finish with Houston. So they've obviously got rid of a lot of guys. They did re-sign Jeff Green, Jayshawn Tate, and Aaron Holiday, but they've also brought in Clint Capella. So shout out to his services for the Hawks. 3 years, $21 million, and they got Dorian Finney-Smith, who the Lakers were pretty disappointed to lose, but they've had a pretty solid offseason, haven't they? The Rockets so far.
And what I've noticed is a lot of teams are bringing back guys who were once with that franchise. You didn't see it often, but now you see it all the time, right? And Clint Capella's come back to a city that he's familiar with, that gave him his first opportunity to be successful as a professional in the NBA. So that's really nice to see.
Who's the better shooter, Woods? Clint Capella or Steven Adams? Who would you bet your life on for one of those guys to make an outside shot? My goodness.
Probably marginally Capella.
Maybe. Yeah, neither of them. I know Capella's never made a 3. I know that. I'm not sure whether Adams had maybe a buzzer beater. I think he did make a big buzzer beater. I can remember him with one hand pass there. But yeah, Houston had done well. So look, we could have spoken all day. There's some more minor ones there. They were kind of the major ones there. So give us some feedbacks on the socials if you've got any comments on any of those contracts or anything else like that. But
just quickly,
what a crazy first week of free
Uncle
agency.
Jeff, same thing as Joe Ingles, man. You know? That's why he's coming back, right?
100%. Yeah, it's great to see him still out there, Jeff Green there. So shout out to him.
And they love Jayshawn Tate in Houston.
Yeah, 100%. They really like him, don't they? Shout out to your former Sydney King there. So, all right. We do want to do some classic packs. So we'll go through true or false very quickly, right? So, prepared these earlier. So, Hills Hornets big man Dan Gack deserves a chance in the NBL alongside his brothers AK and Gorjak.
I'm probably going to say false there, right? There's not many big men spots left, and that's a real stretch. I mean, he's been impressive. I've watched him play a lot, but, he's probably just below.
He's the sort of one that might benefit in, expansion, right? If they were to add 2 more teams and you want a local guy that's maybe not going to cost you a lot, you could do a lot worse than
How old is he?
He's about 27, so he's not old, but he's not. He's still got some time, right? So, been really impressed with what he's doing for Hills. He's been a great mid-season pickup for them. So, maybe we'll see that. Maybe it won't happen, but it'd be nice to see him alongside his brothers there. All right, Dash Daniels and Karim Lopez will both be lottery picks in the 2026 NBA draft.
I'm going to say true.
I'm going to say false. I have a feeling maybe Daniels might drop out a little bit. I'm not sure he'll get the minutes that people are maybe expecting with United to showcase his talents. I think Karim Lopez definitely. I think that guy's a gun. And I do think Dash Daniels will be good. I'm just not sure. We saw that a little bit with Alex Tui, right? Didn't play as much as people thought he might when he was with Sydney, and his draft stock dipped a little bit there.
Hold on.
Having the name Daniels might help him as well.
Let me rephrase that. I think they'll both be first round picks.
Oh, first round picks, definitely. No, the question's lottery picks. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, maybe. You never know, right? And maybe one final one for true and false, Wood. So Woody and Rob are both looking forward to watching NBA Summer League games.
False.
We don't like it, do we?
Hell no.
We've spoken about this before. It's pretty ugly basketball. I feel for some of those guys, and I think one name that stands out for me, someone like Jack White, right? It's just not the type of game for someone like him. There's a lot of guys doing their own thing. So yeah, I'm not looking forward to watch it. Although saying that, when the Hawks are on, of course I'll watch it. But they've got Jack White and Jack McVeigh on that NBA Summer League roster. So could you imagine how happy I'd be if Jack McVeigh makes that Hawks roster there? I'll be absolutely stoked. So it's not the best basketball. I know it has kicked off. There's been a couple of games. I saw Edgecombe had a big game for Philly yesterday. But sometimes when there's not much else to watch, you watch a little bit, but it's not the best basketball, is it?
No, definitely not, man. I mean, I'll pay attention to some box scores and things like that, but
Yeah.
that's about it.
And pay attention to guys like, Dave O'Hickey, for Chicago, I believe, Bawali Bales for New York. So, man, Sydney Comets, who Hills are playing this week in NBL 1, they've got a bit of a break with those two guys leaving there. But shout out to both those two. I'd love to see them. Wouldn't it be amazing if either one of those two could make a roster or at least get a two-way contract there? But all right, well, a lot of news we had there. Let's finish off with some classic packs. I know we haven't done it for a few weeks there.
Yeah,
so
cool, man. Got the 94, 95 tops. I got some newer cards that have just arrived in the mail, actually. So,
nice. What'd you get?
2014 Panini, I think I've got.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Nice.
they're going to be pretty cool.
Nice.
Which is, I don't think we've done like that kind of a decade ago sort of time.
No,
have we?
it's a decent time.
Yeah.
So these are 94, 95 tops, are they?
These are 94, 95 tops.
Cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, big man from the Portland Trailblazers, number 26.
Well, it's not Do Up Breathe. Who's that number now? Is it Mark Bryant?
No, 6'7". No, he could play the 3 and the 4. Like, he's a bit of swing man, right?
Not Ruben Patterson.
No, 94, 95. Yeah.
No, I'm blanking on that one. Who else? Any other
Jerome Kersey.
Oh, Kersey. Oh, of course, yeah. Man, the 26 bit surprising. That's a random number, yeah.
I don't actually.
Pretty
Hold
solid
on, hold on
career,
one
isn't
sec.
Oh, look at this. The doctor's in the house.
I couldn't read the cards, man.
At least you're honest. Yeah.
All right. I got From the Roof. Okay, this guy was awesome, right? At Golden State before being traded to the Washington Bullets back then, as they were known. Chris Webber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. I can picture him doing that fast break where he goes round the back and does that dunk when he's playing for Golden State.
And this is
That's
the
a pretty
insert
nice
From the Roof, right?
Yeah, nice.
Well, I've got another one, another insert of the
Yeah.
exact same player, Paint Patrol.
Random. Yeah, great pack if you're a Chris Webber fan. Shout out to the former Michigan Wolverine. Nice looking card. Yeah. These are quite glossy, these cards as well. Or
Yeah,
good?
beautiful.
Yeah.
So he's offensive rebounds 4, total rebounds 9.1, and 2.2 blocks per game. All right.
He was a great player. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I've got the NBA All-Star Weekend Slam Dunk Champion with the East Bay Funk Dunk.
Isaiah Ryder, JR.
I believe you have this jersey, don't you?
I do have that same jersey. That was a great dunk at the time. It's funny, you wouldn't be winning many dunk comps now. I wouldn't have thought that dunk.
Yeah.
But back then, we hadn't seen that dunk, had we?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Orlando Magic forward. 6'8", went to Notre Dame. What's a clue here?
Not Pat Garrity.
No, this guy was number 5. What are the king and queen considered?
Donald Royal.
Donald Royal, my man.
That was a nice little clue. Yeah.
Yeah.
He wasn't bad back in the day, right? I remember him on those teams with 3D and that sort of Nick Anderson and that. Yeah.
Okay, another Paint Patrol for arguably the greatest defensive player to have ever played the game. Arguably, right?
That's going to be an inside player, right? So,
Yeah.
Hakeem Olajuwon.
Hakeem Olajuwon.
Yeah.
And
Still
like,
gets slept on a little bit, doesn't he?
what do you think? Easy? He's got to be put in the conversation.
Yeah, he's absolutely in the conversation.
Yeah.
Matombo, I don't know. It's a good conversation. One we can discuss at a later date, maybe.
Okay, we just talked about this guy as a head coach in the NBA now, right? His namesake.
Mike Brown playing card.
It's not him though. It's not the Mike Brown coach, is it?
Wow. What's his size? It doesn't look like him, does it?
No, it's not him. It's 6'10". I don't think Mike Brown was a professional.
This is Mike Brown, who I believe played with Utah
Yeah.
back in the days. He got his teams.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
I think this Mike Brown is only about 50 years old now. So if we're talking 30 years,
it's a pretty common name. Isn't
yeah.
it? Also, yeah. Wow, that's a random one.
Oh, we love this guy. Dunk left-handed, but
Vanderbilt.
Kendall Gill.
Nice. What
Seattle
team's he with
Supersonics
there?
jersey,
Oh,
chucking
Seattle.
down a
Yeah, he's
left-hander.
throwing one down. Who's that? Purvis Ellison? Who is that?
Yeah, that's Purvis
He's going
Ellison.
to throw it down.
Yeah.
Never nervous. Yeah, that's a nice card, isn't it? For sure.
Yep. Underrated, man. This guy was a scoring machine for Milwaukee and San Antonio. We've talked about it before. I cannot believe we sleep on this guy. Every season he's putting up 20 points a game through the 80s, right? For Milwaukee and San
Walter
Antonio.
Berry?
No. 6'9" power forward, man.
Oh, Terry Cummings.
Terry Cummings.
Yeah, out of
Like-
DePaul, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
he was really good. Yeah.
No one speaks about him. Like
Yeah.
every single year, 22 points, 21 points. He could score in like
100%.
every year. He's around the 20 to 22
Yeah.
mark, right?
No,
Like
he was great. Definitely.
this guy was awesome, man. A coach on the floor. In fact, he had the unique statistic of his scoring average improving every year for his first 7 or 8 seasons. No one's ever done that. Every year it went up a little bit, and he won a championship with the San Antonio Spurs in that
Oh,
lockout
Mario
year.
Elie?
Nah, left-handed. He won the starting point guard on that.
Oh, Avery Johnson.
Yeah, Avery Johnson. Yeah.
Can you do any voice impressions of Avery Johnson or not?
I can't, but I'll tell you what, we've got some quality control issues here because we've got the same
wow.
card twice in a row in the same
And it's not like one's like stamped or gold or some
No.
other thing?
No,
Man, that's a shocker, isn't it?
that's a
I
shock.
would have been dirty back in the day. You would have been happy if it was like someone you really liked, but not really an Avery Johnson.
And finally, a great scorer for the Denver Nuggets, man. Like this guy, number
Alexander.
34. No, number 34 in the 90s, right? Just always gets slept on. 16, 18, 17 points per game. He was the 93-94 leader in steals and three-pointers for the Nuggets, right?
34.
He went to Georgetown.
Oh, Reggie Williams.
Reggie Williams,
Yeah, right. He
exactly.
was good, wasn't he? Yeah, he was someone that
so underrated, man.
he was under the radar, right? He played with a few teams in the end, didn't he? But yeah,
Yeah.
Denver's probably where he had those good seasons.
Yeah,
The
Clippers
I
and
think,
Cavs and
some time.
Spurs as well,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Nice.
All right.
That was an interesting pack, let's say. I mean, a couple of Avery Johnsons. We had a random Mike Brown, but we did have an Elijah on. We did have a couple of Chris Webbers. That wasn't all bad, right?
Some good names and some nice new looking cards. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, fun to do that, Wood. So, yeah, look, there was plenty to talk about. What's our, as we get into the outro, what are we looking like? Are we going to take a week off? What do you want to do? Maybe, like, if we're ever going to get a week off, it might be next week, right? So, let's maybe plan. We might have a week off next week, depending if there's anything big that happens, right? If anything big that happens, we'll put on the headphones and fire up those mics and come back. But we might have a week, and then we can sort of come back and start to recap some more free agency, some league stuff. And before we know it, Woods, it's going to be preview time for the NBL, which is pretty amazing.
Yep.
So looking forward to. There's been some pre-season announcements. The Blitz is in Canberra this year. I'd love to get down there for a chance to do it. We'll see how we go with that. But
Foxy's going.
he is, yeah, nice. So a bit of an outro there. As I mentioned at the start of the show, please make sure you like, rate, and subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. We can be followed on X at Throwback Hoops. We'll see some Gerald Green jerseys. We'll see this beautiful Boris Diaw rookie autograph PSA 10. Instagram throwback.hoops and email address throwbackhoopspodcast@gmail.com. Look, if anyone's got any ideas for this little, sort of break now, if you want us to do some stuff, we did tease we were going to name our international team. That's probably something we'll do on the next show, Woods, that All-Star format this year, internationals versus the American team. So we've been doing some homework with that. I know I found it really hard trying to get it down to a respectable number. I think I had to start off with 32. I've got it down to 15 now. I need to make a couple of cuts, so I'll have to be a bit ruthless with that. But we'll do that in the coming weeks. Patreon, yeah, if you want to pledge a couple of dollars to support us with all the production associated with this, we'd really appreciate it. So, Woods, give me some final thoughts. Anything that's standing out for you?
Yeah, I mean, exciting times, a lot of movement in the NBA. The season might be over, as you said, but a lot of storylines coming out. So I just hope everyone's keeping safe. I know it's cold here in the eastern states. So hope everyone's keeping warm in the winter. So yeah.
Good stuff. Appreciate it. Look, as I mentioned a lot, when there's no games, in the NBA or NBL, get out and watch your NBL one team. It's going to be coming up to finals soon. So, if you've got a team in your state or your local area, get out and support this great product we've got there. And yeah, can't wait to do it all again, in a week or two, Woods. And a big peace out from the Throwback Hoops group.
Thanks, everyone.